Hey, welcome to this week in the garden. Today I am starting off by planting some zinnias. I also have put down some of the slug bait in the area where I did the in-ground planting. It's only been a couple days since I did that, so I haven't seen anything coming up yet in this area, but I figured, you know what, I'm just gonna get that slug bait down so that we can make sure that we don't have any issues with any slugs going after the seedlings. And now I'm gonna plant, so around the rose bush, I had nasturtiums and they were just kind of starting to fade. They're pretty much done for the season. So I pulled out one of my favorite zinnia seeds. These are the Queen Lime Red. They're such a pretty zinnia. So I'm just gonna put a few of these seeds in and around the rows. The Queen Lime series are those beautiful like antique colors with the tints of green, hence the lime, and they're so stunning. Let's just put a couple here at the base of this rose. With the really pretty apricot kind of color of the rose, I think that the lime is gonna be perfect. I'm just gonna kind of brush it in. Those are gonna be so pretty. Good morning, welcome to the garden. We're having a little garden morning. You can probably hear the girls playing in the background. They are scootering all over, but I had to show you, very exciting this morning. So we've got one of the sunflowers coming up. So this, I think, is one of the mammoth sunflowers. They're just so big and robust. I'm not surprised that they're the first ones to come like shooting up. I feel like that's very, yeah, that just seems right. But I'm so excited that something's actually coming up out here in the little like in-ground portion. Look at this, we've got, oh, and I think there's some corn too. So that definitely looks like a mammoth sunflower. And then we've got a little corn. And I'm not really seeing, maybe that's another corn, I don't know. I'm not really seeing too much else out here coming up yet. I've been trying so hard to make sure I keep it watered. Dries out so fast. So it's a little bit of a struggle to kind of keep everything watered. But I know that, you know, I'm sure something will come up. Plants, you know, as one of my favorite garden YouTubers, like, what is it, Jess at Roots and After, she always says plants, like, they want to grow, like they want to live. So I'm holding out a good spot. If I keep watering it over there, you know, back in this area, I hope they'll come up. I did end up throwing in, when I planted all those sunflowers and I planted all of the corn and everything in the in-ground portion, I did end up throwing some in the raised bed because I can't help myself. Like, once I get out here with some seeds, I'm like, if there's any bare open ground, I just start thinking, oh, well, you know, could pop some in there. So I ended up putting some corn, I don't remember I talked about it, and I ended up putting some in this raised bed here that has the patty pan squash, which are doing really well. They've been looking really good in this bed, which is really encouraging. So I threw some corn in here too, because why not? And it's coming up. So this is very exciting. So here you go. You can see corn coming up. I just think corn is so beautiful. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about it. And the corn in this bed is like, look how big this is getting. It's growing so fast. So I think this week I'm gonna do a whole nother container, maybe even a couple containers with corn, just for the fun of it, just because I love it. Something about it makes me really happy. I don't know what it is. Eventually, if I have a big in-ground garden space, I would love to do like a real field of like sweet corn for eating. I've never had space to do any of that. My corn has always been purely decorative, but I've heard that like fresh corn is just kind of incredible. And I've honestly found that it's pretty easy to grow. I say that it's easy to grow, and I know that that's completely just depends on your garden. Like, everyone says radishes are easy to grow, and I've always had a hard time with them. So I won't say that it like necessarily always is easy to grow, but for me, I've had really good luck with it just like coming up and being consistent producer in the garden. So it's definitely on the plan for my next garden, like a big area of sweet corn. It's the dream for me. But yeah, I was like so excited last night when I was out here watering to see that the mammoth sunflowers are coming up. And I had that slug bait down. So I'm really hoping that everything's gonna be okay. And the seedlings aren't gonna get eaten by slugs, and like, fingers crossed, let's hope. Oh my goodness, it is a beautiful morning out here. Good morning. I have coffee, I have seeds, my two favorite things, and lots of foam. I'm definitely a foam girl in the coffee. So good. So anyways, make sure I don't have a milk mustache here. So anyways, yesterday you would have seen me plant up this container here, my hanging basket that has turned into a not hanging basket. So I planted that up, and I'm gonna probably water it this morning. The past week or so, I've been watering the garden in the evening, trying to just get out here and give it a really nice deep water so that the plants actually, have some time to really soak up that hydration before basically we get this really intense heat, because obviously it's so much drier and hotter out here on the pavement. It's an incredibly different experience for me personally as a gardener. My last garden was almost completely the opposite. So in my last garden, I had, just a totally different kind of climate. Not only was my growing zone colder, I was in 7A, but also I had almost, most of it was shade, part sun. I didn't really have any, I had one tiny section of full sun, and it was obviously a very humid climate, being that it was in Virginia. And so between the just humidity in the air and then all of the shade that I had from the trees and the houses and my patio, it created this really wet environment, which it's interesting, the different challenges between those different kind of garden settings. I think I'm really learning a lot, honestly, by having this garden here. It's teaching me quite a bit, because in that garden, the challenges were slugs, not really overwatering, I would say, but some issues with plants getting too saturated or kind of overwhelmed. And then in this garden, things are just drying out so fast. I've had some issues with some germination and the growth of my zinnias, and I'm wondering if it's almost that everything's just drying out and I can't stay on top of the water enough. So we're gonna have an 80-degree day today. Obviously that's a dry heat. So I actually may go ahead and come in and water again this morning, or at least water the pots that have the seeds in them. Of course, there's the plants like the calibrachoas and some of the salvias that are pretty drought tolerant. And I feel like there is a chance that I could overwater them if I get a little bit too worried about this dryness that we have. So I'm trying to balance it, but I am gonna plant a couple more zinnias. So when I planted that basket up, I took out the agastachy from the middle from the side of my pollinator raised bed. And so I'm gonna go ahead and refill it by putting in a couple zinnia seeds and just seeing if they survive. I wanted something that was in that same reds, oranges, yellows, peach tones, because everything else is really pretty blue. There's the red kufia, but well, let's look at the bed. It's pretty blue, so I think we need something in these tones. So we got the blue here, then okay, this is gonna be yellow. The sunflower is gonna be yellow, but then we're gonna have a white amaranth, which, look, this is growing so much faster than I expected. It's only been a couple weeks, and I don't know if you remember when I put this plant in here, it was so small, and it's getting huge. It is just great. It could be up like 6 feet. So I am a little worried about staking it. I need to get a stake in here, but anyways, and then we have the red coleus, the kufia, and then of course, okay, the blue. So I think this will be pretty. Hopefully we get one of these pinks. I do have a true, oh, there's a spider. Let me get this out. I do have some seeds for pink zinnias. I have some of the luminosa mix, but I think these are fun, and I'm just gonna put 2 or 3 seeds along the side here, and then if they can grow, if the sunflower doesn't take over, then that'll be fine. But if the sunflower does take over, I'm not gonna worry about it if it does. You can see I started to try to trim some of the leaves to keep it out of the agastachy's way, and it was just becoming too hard because this is a branching sunflower, so the branches are coming out. Now, my thought process originally was that eventually the sunflower is going to get so high that it would be okay to have something a little bit lower. But I think that the Kufia is going to fill in that kind of like lower level anyways, so that'll be okay even if we have a zinnia in here. But yeah, it's branching, and it's branching a ton, so it's really filling this in. I have been doing a little bit of maintenance pruning, like taking off a leaf here just to create some more opening and work on the shape of these containers. Over here in the kitchen garden bed, I went ahead and took off one of the leaves of the eggplant to give enough sun for my little scallions. I love this. I'm so glad that I went for this Japanese eggplant that has a really dark stem because it is a beautiful focal plant. And so I felt a little bad sort of chopping off this one leaf because it kind of affected the shape of the plant. But you do, you know, in a highly densely packed planted bed, you do have to do a little bit of, you know, trimming like that. I am going to leave the leaves over here on this side. So because this is the Swiss chard, I think that having a little bit of shade on it might actually be a good thing. Swiss chard does tolerate the heat. It does really, really well. But, you know, it is a green, and it's certainly not going to mind having a little bit of shade. This garden gets so much sun and heat. I don't think there's any danger of it not getting enough sun, and like one little leaf think is probably going to be totally fine and make almost no difference. But I just thought, you know what, I would leave it and just like let it let that kind of give it a little bit of shade. And that is a really, you know, cool way that you can grow. I've done underplantings of kale that have done really well, like planting kale midsummer under my peppers, and just having a little bit of shade actually really helps. So you can kind of cheat the system a little bit, and that was my thought with this, is that I'll just let these things kind of shade, you know, let this eggplant kind of shade over the Swiss chard, and then that'll be good. And actually, I think the strawberries even would benefit from a little bit of shade. It's so intensely hot out here that I just, you know, I worry slightly. So once the pepper gets huge, once the eggplant gets huge, because this eggplant could get like 3 feet tall. I mean, it could be really big. It's gonna kind of shade the cucumbers, it'll shade the strawberries. I think it's gonna work out great. I'm so thrilled with this container. This is like my pride and joy. I'm loving it. I am waiting for the strawberries, still waiting on more flowers, but you know, that's okay. All right, so let's plant. Let me show you these scabious zinnias. Let's talk about them, and then I'm gonna put them in here. This has been kind of my week of planting random little zinnias in different corners of the garden. Sort of one of my favorite things to do is just to have like little patches of zinnias here and there to keep things, you know, bright and fun. So the scabiosa mix is a really fun mix because you get these really bright colors, and some of them have the pom-pom sort of fluffy tops. You don't always get this, and I've had this issue too with some of the like Cinderella type zinnias that I've gotten. If your plant is stressed, I think, or just depending on the conditions in general, you can get plants that just stay the single. But I think the single zinnia is really gorgeous too. So even if we don't get any fluffy tops, I'll be okay with that. Although I would love, like, if we can get a couple big pink fluffy zinnias right here, like, wouldn't that be perfect? Hopefully the zinnias will take off and grow. I'm encouraged because the zinnias over here in this bed are actually growing at the normal rate and speed that I would expect from zinnias. If it's nice and warm out, you can get your zinnias blooming so fast. I mean, they just take off and grow so quickly. There was one year that I, the seed packet's empty. Okay, I have more zinnias inside, so I'm gonna have to run in and get some different ones. Let me go do that. All right, I just grabbed some more of the Oklahoma formula mix, which is another bright, summery, ooh, the light, sun's coming up. A bright, summery mix, super colorful, so hopefully we get the right colors. Let's do four seeds. Oops. I'm kind of disappointed. I was excited for that scabiosa mix. So I've got to add that to my list. I need to do, you know, some seed orders, but I'm kind of just waiting for next year and the next garden, and then we'll order a lot more seeds. I'm trying to sort of use up some of my seeds that I have, because I tend to collect seeds as one does, and I have a big old seed collection, and it definitely could use an inventory, obviously, and a clear out, but these are going to be really pretty too. This is a nice classic kind of zinnia look from what I remember, but hopefully they'll come up really fast. So let's see. Yeah, with 75 to 85 degrees soil temperature is their germination temperature. We're definitely hitting that this week. And I have found with my zinnias, there were a few years that I planted them in July and got blooms in the end of August. Like, they're such a great plant for fast growing. So hopefully they'll pop right up and make their way in and around this sunflower. I've also found that they tend to do that, kind of like they'll weave their way through. So that should be good. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to do today. I am gonna spray my petunias again with the Thuricide. It definitely helped, and I've seen a little bit of damage even now on the pink petunias, so I think I need to keep on top of that. Something's trying to eat, whether it's budworms or something, it's trying to eat my petunias. So I'm gonna do that today too, and then of course just keep watering the seedlings and keeping track of everything. It's been a good week of planting in the garden. I did, of course, get a chance to get a new container started. So I'm having tons of fun, and I'm just filling this whole garden up with plants, really. Embracing this time of year. It's so hard knowing that I'm gonna have to pack this garden up. It's really it's really an interesting thing. And I was just talking on Instagram about this, how I'm not sure with the fall garden what I'm gonna do. Typically, I know we're still planting our summer garden, but typically in June I start to think about my summer garden or my fall garden, and I start to plan that fall garden. And with it being zone 10A, I feel like everything's just gonna keep growing. Like, my peppers will probably just keep growing. So it'll be interesting next month. I'll have to make some hard decisions, but for right now, I'm loving this, like the summer annual process, just getting all the summer annuals in the ground, in the containers, filling everything out. And I think the garden's starting to come together. It's just looking so much more, every day it's looking more and more like a garden, and we've got so much coming up out here. Look at that. We're gonna have so many fruit growing. They're the first flowers on the Roma tomato. Look at that, it's covered in blooms, and the first flower on the eggplant. The peppers are getting buds. So I think we're in a good spot as far as the end of May. Oh, and the corn. So yesterday, you remember what the corn looked like? Look at it today. It's starting to unfurl. I don't know if it'll... And it has the little drops of water on it. It's so beautiful. And I just noticed too, you can sort of see some of the sunflowers that I planted in here are coming up. So this bed is about to get really wild. I'm still looking to see if there's any more sunflowers out here. Anything else coming up? I don't see it yet. But we've got plenty of time as far as all of that goes. I better put these back inside. Now I'm like looking around. Where could I stick in a zinnia seed? Tell me I'm not alone. You know what I am gonna do? I'm gonna put in some zinnia seeds around my clematis. The girls wake me up so early in the morning, and it's so hard for me to talk. That was one thing I did not anticipate becoming a mom, that I would have such trouble talking, but the sleep deprivation is real. I misspeak so often. It's one of the funniest things. But I had, so around here I had the nasturtiums, and I pulled most of them out because they really were starting to look kind of dry, and I don't know. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop a couple zinnia seeds in here too. The soil's kind of compacted. That's the issue with planting around perennials. So if you have perennials in containers, it's a little tricky planting from seed around them. You know, if you got a big enough container, I feel like that you're putting in the actual, like an actual plant, an actual seedling, it at least has already its own root system, and you're digging a big enough hole that they'll usually do pretty well. But when you're planting from seed around perennials like this, I do find that sometimes it's a little tricky because this soil is so, there's still the root system from the nasturtium in there. There's the root system obviously from the clematis. I don't want to go in and like rip out the nasturtium roots really, because I don't want to disrupt the clematis that much. I feel like that would be a little intense for it. So I don't know, we'll see how those zinnias do. They may be pretty spindly. It really may not work out for them, and I'm kind of unhappy with this clematis honestly, because this is my thing with clematis. I love it so much. It's so beautiful, but after it blooms and then it looks like this, and I don't know if I'm just doing something wrong. I thought that the still waters was supposed to keep blooming, but I know it'll do a second flush in the like late summer. But the vines just don't look good midsummer, and with such a small garden, like usually for me, I need something that's going to perform the whole season. My garden's so small that something like this really sticks out, and it's really noticeable. So I don't know, I'm still on the edge. I don't know if I'm gonna, every time I see clematis, I'm like, oh my gosh, and I want to buy more, and then I remember this, and I'm thinking like, I don't know with the small garden, with the container garden, if it's worth it. Now if I can plant enough things around it that look beautiful, then maybe that's fine. So I might just have to go put this in a bigger pot someday and pack it with other annuals around the outside, so that at least it looks beautiful in some regard around the outside, and I don't have so much focus on it, because I think part of it is like it's such a big focus on it that, yeah, it ends up, I don't know, kind of bugging me a little bit. But we'll see how those zinnias do. You know, that's just, I have to give it a shot. All right, so the last thing I'm gonna do is just spray these plants with the fungicide since it's still early. No pollinators are out yet, and it'll be all nice and dry by the time the pollinators are around. This is really effective, but kind of like fertilizer, it's only effective if you keep up on it. So you do have to keep reapplying. You can see the flowers are getting eaten. There's caterpillars, something on it. My spray bottle's not working. Well, I gotta get a new spray bottle. We've had a few mishaps in the garden this week, between the hanging basket and no seeds and spray bottle's not working. I think that's the nature of the garden and life, and things just happen. So I'm gonna get a new spray bottle. We'll keep after making sure that I get to enjoy the blooms on those flowers and not the bugs. Sorry guys, there's other flowers you're gonna have to eat. But as always, thank you so much for spending a week in the garden with me, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.